self-isolation and depression, what it's actually like living this way, functioning anyway. If you're dealing with depression and you've pulled away from people, this video is for you. This isn't medical advice. I'm not here to diagnose anything or tell anyone what they should do. I'm just sharing my experience. This is what self-isolation looks like for me, how it showed up in my life, and how I function anyway. Self-isolation didn't start on purpose. It wasn't something I planned. It wasn't a decision I made all at once. It happened slowly. It started because I was tired, physically tired, mentally tired, emotionally drained. I was dealing with pain. I was dealing with depression. And I didn't have the energy to keep explaining myself to people. At some point, being alone felt safer than being misunderstood, not because I didn't care about people, but because I didn't have the capacity. That part matters. A lot of people assume isolation means you don't care or that you're pushing people away on purpose. For me, that wasn't true. I still cared. I just didn't have enough in me to keep showing up the way people expected. At first, isolation actually helped me. It gave me space. It gave me quiet. It gave me control over my time and my energy. I wasn't moving at everyone else's pace anymore. I wasn't trying to keep up with conversations, expectations, or social energy that I didn't have. I could move through my day at my own pace. I could focus on what mattered to me instead of constantly reacting to everything around me. I wasn't being pulled in all directions anymore. And when you're dealing with depression and pain, that kind of quiet can feel like relief. For a while, it felt like I could finally breathe. But over time, things started to change. Days began to blur together. The structure I thought I had slowly faded. The longer I stayed isolated, the harder it felt to re-enter life. Being around people again felt heavier than it used to. I got comfortable being by myself, not in a bad way at first, but in a way that made reconnecting feel harder. Being alone was predictable. Being around people felt draining. Isolation felt safe, especially when I was trying to manage pain, depression, and limited energy. But safety slowly turned into stagnation. Isolation helped me survive for a while, but it also made things smaller. I started neglecting myself in ways I didn't notice at first. I stayed inside too much. I stopped moving my body the way I needed to. The days ran together. I wasn't falling apart, but I wasn't fully living either. It felt like I was stuck in a holding pattern, not moving forward, not moving backward, just existing. And that's when I realized that while isolation protected me from overwhelm, it was also shrinking my world. There's something about isolation that I think gets misunderstood. A lot of people think isolation means giving up. But for many of us, isolation is a way of regulating overload. When your nervous system is already overwhelmed, adding people, noise, expectations, or conversations can feel impossible. So isolation becomes a way to survive. Not because you don't want connection, but because connection feels like too much. That difference matters. One of the hardest parts of isolation is the internal conflict it creates. On one hand, you want peace. On the other hand, you don't want to disappear. You want relief from pressure, but you don't want loneliness. Holding both of those at the same time is exhausting. It can make you feel stuck, like no option feels right. That doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're trying to meet your needs with limited energy. So now, I don't try to fix isolation. I don't force myself to be social. I don't pressure myself to show up in ways I don't have the energy for. But I also try not to disappear completely. That balance matters. If someone calls, I try to answer the phone. Even if the conversation is short, even if I don't have much to say, I do things that genuinely interest me, not things I think I should be doing. Sometimes that means connecting with people online, just enough to remind myself that I'm not alone. Nothing intense, nothing overwhelming, just connection without pressure. With my family, I try to show up for special occasions when I can. I don't always make it, and I've had to learn to accept that. I'm detached at times, but I still keep one or two safe connections. People I don't have to explain myself to. People who understand that my energy changes. For me, my mom is one of those people. I don't need a lot of people. I just need a few connections that feel safe and steady. Another big change for me was stopping the wait for motivation. Motivation isn't reliable for me. I struggle with memory. I struggle with focus. I struggle with energy. So instead of waiting to feel ready, I focus on structure. Small routines, repeating simple actions, doing things daily until they become familiar. Not because they're exciting, but because they help me keep moving forward. Structure helps me function when motivation isn't there. I've also had to learn how to accept quiet without judging myself. I don't guilt myself for missing social events anymore. I don't punish myself for needing space. I pay attention to my energy instead of forcing myself to push past it. Some days I can show up. Some days I can't, and both are allowed. Something else I've had to accept is that functioning doesn't always look impressive. Sometimes functioning looks like getting through the day without spiraling, answering one message instead of none, maintaining one routine instead of 10, choosing rest instead of forcing productivity. That still counts. Functioning doesn't have to look like progress on the outside to be real on the inside. The biggest shift for me was this. I stopped trying to fix isolation and focused on functioning anyway. That doesn't mean isolation disappears. It means I work with where I am instead of fighting it. It means I stay connected enough that I don't disappear from my own life. If this sounds familiar, you're not broken. You're not weak. You're responding to what your body and mind are dealing with. This is just what functioning looks like sometimes. This is functioning anyway.